Well, hello and welcome to week 4 of the NFL season. The Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa. Tampa's a team the Eagles certainly know a lot of. They seem to play them, it's seemingly just about every year. It's one of those opponents that non-divisional opponent that the Eagles seem to see a lot, particularly in recent years. Of course, they played them in the playoffs a few times without any success in Tampa. Two of the last 3 years have ended there. Last season, the Eagles did get a win in Tampa early in the season. I think it was week 3, and at the time, um, Tampa, I think, came into that game 2-0, and the Eagles were able to win that game. And then, of course, at the end of the season, when things were not going very well, walked into Tampa for the wild card playoff game and got destroyed in a very non-competitive game. An embarrassment, it really was. It was I hate to say a fitting way to end that season, but it kind of was. So there is a revenge factor in this game, but we don't quite know exactly what Eagles team's going to show up. Through 3 weeks so far, the Eagles, they have their share of injuries. So does Tampa. And through 3 weeks, it's been a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team. At times, they looked pretty good against Green Bay and Brazil. They got the win there. Against Atlanta, the defense was not very good. The offense was not very good. And even with that, I mean, they were a Saquon Barkley catch away from winning the game. And then last week against New Orleans, and probably, I would say, um, a I would say not a pretty game, certainly, but a good win for the Eagles because the Saints obviously came into that game 2-0. They were the highest scoring offense in the league. The Eagles defense a week prior gave up that touchdown drive to the Falcons to basically, and then basically, and then there was a Hurts interception, but that was pretty much at the end, very end. That was that's how that game pretty much ended. But realistically, I mean, the defense a week prior looked as poor as they did against the Falcons on that last drive that got the go-ahead score for Atlanta. And then you go to New Orleans in a very difficult spot against a high-flying offense, and the defense played very well. The defensive line in particular, particularly up the middle. I thought Jalen Carter had one of his, if not his best game of his career to this point. And you also got contribution from Davis and others. Brandon Graham kind of turned the hands back a clock a little bit of his career. But I thought Jordan Davis played very strong. He got a sack. Both he and Carter neutralized the run for New Orleans, which is realistically how you have to beat that team because New Orleans obviously is going to lean on their running game, and Alvin Kamara, who through the first 2 weeks of the season looked like he was an MVP candidate. Um, the Eagles really neutralized him, and in doing so, neutralized that Saints offense. They got a late touchdown by Olave that put them ahead at the time. The Eagles went right down the field on a huge play. Dallas Goedert, who had his most yards as an Eagle in a single game, in fact, set the franchise record for touchdown for yards by a tight end. That's the word I was looking for, tight end. Season record for a tight end, 170 yards receiving. Great game by Dallas Goedert. We were wondering what happened to him, and I guess he made up for like the previous 2 weeks, all in that one game. Great game by Dallas. And at the end of the day, you walk away from that game with a win. What was it, 15-11, some weird score like that. But the Eagles got the win. They go to 2-1, and now they go to Tampa. And you're playing against a Bucks team that the thing that kind of sucks about this game is you're playing a Bucks team who were embarrassed last week at home against Denver. And as it was with the Eagles a week ago, where they have to hear all the negativity and everything from the media to the fans to what have you about the defense and about that play call and about, Saquon dropping the ball and really what was a winnable game against Atlanta. that just got away from them. And they go to New Orleans. Not a lot of people think they're going to win the game. How are they going to stop the Saints? Blah, 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 right? And they go ahead and they do it. So this week, Tampa's on that kind of end of the stick where a lot of people were talking about them like, oh, you lose a game to Denver. Denver's not a good team. You lose a game to Denver at home, you get embarrassed. There's all these injuries. Now you got the Eagles coming in with Saquon, and what are you going to do against them? It's sometimes in the NFL, it is such a short season. It really is about kind of spot, where these games play week to week. How does the spot in this in the schedule right now affect both teams, right? Where last week you could say, okay, the Eagles were the team with the chip on the shoulder going into a hostile environment in New Orleans and not a lot of people giving them a chance to win. And they went in and look, they went in and the Saints picked a fight and they fought back and they got out of there with a dub. This week now it's the Buccaneers with the chip on their shoulder because they lost poorly a week ago to a not very good Denver team with a rookie quarterback, and you got slapped around in that game. Now the Eagles are coming in. They're coming off a win, a road win, a good win. And yeah, I mean it's kind of a tough spot for the Eagles, I think. It's also the week before the bye week. You do have some big injuries. You're still without some players. Both your top receivers. I don't believe A.J. Brown's going to play. I know I think he heard he may have practiced, but I'm not sure. I guess it's going to be a game day decision on him. Although I think I heard he's not going to play. And of course, Smitty got with the concussion last week in New Orleans in that win. And I believe Lane Johnson's going to play. I know he left with concussion symptoms or what have you last week. But kudos to the guys that stepped in. I mean, they were pretty much a mash unit as the game went on. And they, got a lot of guys stepped up. And that's the mark of a good team, right? Because it can't always be just the starters. You need contributions all over, and they got that a week ago to get a win. But obviously, week to week, how can you really go week to week without your top two receivers? Now, last week they kind of made it work. We saw a lot of Dallas Goedert. Saquon had another good game, a long touchdown for him, and he scored the go-ahead score as well and the 2-point conversion. So a good game by Saquon as well. Very good game by the offensive line. Jalen Hurts, I thought, at times played pretty good. The issue with Jalen so far through 3 games is the turnovers. Too many turnovers. I mean, look, you're a starting quarterback in this league, and the defenses are coming after you. And the problem through 3 weeks was a problem a season ago. Too many turnovers, too many interceptions, too many fumbles. You gotta take care of the football, particularly when you're without your 2 top receivers. You gotta still be able to make the plays. And yeah, you can rely on the running game. Yeah, you can rely on the offensive line. But at the end of the day, we need our quarterback, number one, to be able to control the ball, to hold on to the ball, to not turn the ball over, not give the ball to the other team. And through 3 games so far, I believe he has, 5 or 6 turnovers. And that's just not getting it done. That's just not getting it done. We need him to be better. And he can be better. And that's what we need. Because a game like this, when you have 2 teams that are as banged up as both teams are, it's going to come down to the turnovers. It's going to come down to what defense is going to create the most turnovers. That's probably the team that's going to win this game. Tampa Bay, you look at that offense coming in. Baker Mayfield coming off a poor performance last week. But Baker is I believe, if I heard right, has the most sacks allowed in the league so far. However, when he's upright, he can pick you apart. He has 2 very good receivers in Evans and Godwin, and they have a decent running game. So yeah, I mean, if you just let Baker survey the field, he's gonna make some throws there, and they have some pretty good receivers, and I know they're upset from their performance last week against Denver. So you know they want to come out at home, to have a better performance. And Baker, again, he gets sacked a lot, but he also makes a lot of plays. So the one thing we know about this Eagles defense so far, as well as their defense played a week ago, they still didn't get a lot of sacks on Carr. They, going into this week, I believe this is a Reuben Frank stat. The last edge rusher to get a sack for the Eagles was Hassan Reddick last season. And we know it's been well documented, right? We haven't seen anything out of Bryce Huff so far, and he was one of the offseason acquisitions. We don't have a sack from Sweat. We don't have a sack from Graham. We don't have a sack from any edge rusher so far this season. The sacks have come from the interior, right? Davis had a sack. Milton Williams had a sack so far in the season. I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, you can probably count on one hand how many sacks this team has in 3 weeks. And it's been, look, I think overall their defense has played, even with that, it's amazing to me. I think they still have played pretty decent. That drive against Atlanta, aside, I mean, you look at the other teams, whether it's Green Bay, Atlanta, or last week New Orleans, in the red zone, they're coming away with field goals more so than touchdowns. So I think for the most part, the Eagles defense has done a pretty good job so far this season. The problem, though, is they're just not getting enough pressure on the opposing quarterbacks. And, you're going into a week where you're going up against a quarterback who has been sacked a ton so far in the season. You would hope that this would be the week that you would see some pressure and you would see some sacks from the edge rushers, not just, up the middle, but maybe a Josh Sweat, maybe a BG, maybe a Bryce Huff. These guys have got to get in there and they've got to wreak some havoc. And if there was a week to do it, it's this week because Tampa's pretty banged up. And if you don't want to let Baker just have all day to survey the field and throw to some very good receivers. And the Eagles secondary still, look, I mean, I know that Slay and Mitchell have played pretty good so far this season, but still, you got some youth there in the secondary, and guys like Evans and Godwin can get you if you give them the opportunities. And they are coming off a poor performance a week ago against Denver, so they want to atone for that. And they're playing at home, so I think it's a tough spot for the Eagles. Again, like I said, it's just before the bye week, and you are playing a team that's coming off a poor home performance a week ago. Now, when I look at this Eagles offense, and I look at the team that beat Tampa last week, and even without A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith in the lineup tomorrow, is this Eagles offense that much worse than what Denver was a week ago? When Denver really doesn't have a lot of weapons. I mean, they have a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. They just don't have a lot of weapons, yet they were able to score a lot of points on Tampa. Now, Tampa, again, they have a lot of injuries. Vita Vea is probably one of their biggest injuries on the whole team. He's one of those tone setters on defense. He's a huge run stopper. He can get to the quarterback. Without him, Denver was able to do a lot, with offense a week ago. Run the ball. They ran the ball really well. Bo Nix was able to make some plays. And I look at this Eagles team coming into this game, and I look at the team that beat Tampa a week ago, and I know it's a week-to-week deal, but I'm looking at that Denver team, and I'm looking at this Eagles team even without Brown and Smith, and I'm saying, well, if that Denver team could do what they did on this Tampa team last week, even without these guys, we still should be able to move the ball. And you got that, that battering ram, in Saquon. And I know that Tampa's gonna, look, they got Temple Tough Todd Bowles. We all know that, right? Great defensive guy, great defensive mind, I should say. He's their head coach. He's given the Eagles some fits over the years, and they're gonna, zone in to try to stop Saquon. But that being said, sometimes with the great running backs, it's one thing to try to stop them. It's the other thing to actually do it. And this Eagles offensive line is still pretty good. And Saquon is Saquon. So he still should be able to have some opportunity to make plays against this Tampa defense, who is still without Vita Vea. They're without some other players, and still there's going to be opportunities there for the Eagles to make some plays. The question is, are they going to get enough out of the wide receivers who are in there? Is Dotson going to show up at all this week? Are they going to continue to try to feed the ball to Dallas Goedert? That worked really well for them last week in a win. He was key and instrumental in that win. We're going to have to wait and see, obviously. But I think it's still a game that the Eagles could be able to control the clock, control the tempo with their running game. And I know Tampa's going to try to, zone in on it, but still, the Eagles still have a very good offensive line, and they have, Saquon. So they still should be able to have some success running the ball. And that controls the clock. And in a game like this, where it might be low scoring, there might not be a ton of points on the board at the end of the day, and it's really about the team that's going to be able to control the clock and limit the turnovers. And again, this is where Jalen has to be good. You can't be throwing interceptions. You can't be fumbling the ball, particularly when you're in the other team's, part of the field. The other issue from a week ago, and I think we all know where I'm going with this right now, is my concerns about the coach and my concerns about the play calling. Nick Sirianni last week, again, elected to leave points on the field. Did not kick field goals when he should have kicked field goals, right? In a close game. You look at the Atlanta loss, and I know everyone looks at the Saquon drop, and that was a huge play, and then the Eagles defense giving up that touchdown drive. If they would have kicked a field goal in the first half, the Eagles may have still won that game against Atlanta. If the Eagles would have taken the points, would have kicked 2 field goals, that's 6 points they left on the field last week. And I know there was 2 turnovers, but still, when you have a chance to get points, particularly when you're on the road, and I know, look, everyone wants touchdowns over field goals. Everyone does, right? We all play Madden, right? When we're in those situations, we're going for the touchdowns, right? But this isn't Madden. This is the real deal. And you're playing a game on the road, in a game where points are at a premium, and you can't just leave points on the field. We have a good field goal kicker. And at the end of the day, you don't go for field goals, and then you go for the 60-yarder. This is the thing that I'm just racking my brain going, what are we doing? You're not taking the easy field goals, but you're going for the 60-yarder. And I know they punted the ball once and it got blocked. Listen, that's not going to be a norm. That happened. It happened. But you gotta take the points. And I don't know if it's going to change with Nick. Look, at the end of the day, they won the game. And you can never take that away from them, right? A win's a win. But my God. The first time when they elected to go for it on 4th down instead of taking the points, and then they do it again, and that was even more damning at the time, because now you did it once, and you do it again, and both times the 4th down fails. And listen, this team, they're pretty decent on 4th downs, but it's like you're just going to the well way too often. And I don't know. I can't. It's just so maddening. And I still have my questions about the coach. I'm still going to be worried as the season goes on, particularly if this team goes on a losing skid, how they're going to come out of it. Listen, I think it was a very good win last week. That could have been a loss, coming off a bad loss against Atlanta, but they were able to find a way to get a win last week, and I think that's a very good thing. It's almost like they won the game despite the coach. It's I just worry. I just do, and I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record with this, but I just worry about him. Even now it's too much Harry High School. It just is. Listen, you're in the NFL right now. You saw how Detroit lost the NFC title game last year. in San Francisco. They should have won that game. But their coach decided that we're just going to leave points on the field. And when you do that and you lose a close game, a winnable game for Detroit to go to the Super Bowl, and they lost that game in part because they didn't kick field goals. And I know Detroit, that was their whole thing all year, right? They're aggressive. Well, sometimes you can be a little too aggressive and it costs you. And it cost them a trip to the Super Bowl. The Eagles are a little too aggressive. And I hope that doesn't cost them at the end of the day. If they make if they make a playoff run, the old saying is you are what you are. But I want to see this coach just do better in those type of situations. Will he? I don't know. Some people are just set in their ways, and that's just it. That's just it, right? I don't know. Now, listen, I know we had an aggressive coach when we won the Super Bowl, and Doug Peterson, who's in trouble right now in Jacksonville, isn't he? But and we won a Super Bowl in part because of the aggressive nature of the head coach. But there's a difference between that kind of aggressive and what Nick Sirianni's doing. This is just sometimes it's just a simple thing. You just got to take the points. You got to get the field goal. And through 3 weeks, it's still been one of the more maddening things for me is this just unbelief in taking points when there's points to be there. And at the end of the day, that could cost you a game like it did Atlanta. It almost cost them in New Orleans. That's almost 2 games in a row that it cost them. And it worries me. And it's going to continue to worry me as the season goes on. So we're going to see what happens tomorrow. Eagles against the Bucks. It's a tough spot, I think. I still think it's a tough spot for the Eagles. I look at the schedule after the bye week, and it looks pretty good. I mean, it's week to week. Right now the Browns are looking like what they're looking. They could look better when we play them, right? The Giants could look a little better when we play them. I mean, there's winnable games. What I'm saying is winnable games. We're going to be a little more healthy. I usually don't like a bye week early in the season, but this year they need it. They need it just for the fact of getting guys back healthy. That's going to be big. And I like how the schedule's setting up after that bye week, the first 3 or 4 games after that bye week. Now, you still got to go out and play. You can't just roll the ball out and say, oh, it's a winnable game, we're just going to win. You have to do what you got to do to win those games. But I like how the schedule's looking after that bye week. We have some games that should be winnable. We have some home games and even some road games that should be winnable for this team. And tomorrow should be a winnable game, too. I know Tampa, coming off a pathetic performance, they're going to play better. But they still have a lot of injuries, as the Eagles do. But I still think if the Eagles do, what I hope that they would do, there's still going to be there's still going to be chances to win this game. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens. Listen, if they lose the game, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's 2-2. I'd rather be that than 1-3, which is what they could have been if the Saints game went the other way. Although they could be 3-0 right now if the Atlanta game went another way, right? Just a play here or there. But look, a good win, a gutty win a week ago in New Orleans, and if they come out with a solid win against Tampa, I think that's great going into the bye week. We're 3-1, with some winnable games coming out of the bye week. You get guys healthy out of the bye week, right? If they lose, it's 2-2, it's 500. It's not the end of the world. This is still a very winnable division. And we got a bye week again, getting guys back, and then have some winnable games afterwards. So we're going to have to wait and see. It's a tough spot, like I said. Tampa, look, they were embarrassed last week, and they want to make atone for that, make amends for the mistakes they made a week ago against Denver. I would have rather they won that game and been 3-0, high off the hog now, and maybe we sneak up on them, right? But 2-1, both teams are 2-1, and Tampa again coming off a bad loss at home. So it's a tough spot for the Eagles. It is a place that's given them trouble over the years. It's a coach that's given them trouble over the years in Todd Bowles. But I still think there's a chance they come away with a dub. But it's just this game is too close to call right now. It just really is. Both teams have a lot of injuries. It's going to be like a war of attrition out there, and we're going to have to see how this thing goes. But we'll see. I do want to see Jalen protect the ball more, reduce the turnovers. I want to see Nick when there's points on the board to be had, take the points. In a game like this, points can be at a premium, so you gotta take the points when they're there to be taken. So we'll see what happens. So anyhow, Eagles at Tampa tomorrow, 1:00 game on Fox. Tom Brady calling the game. Come on, Tom. So that's going to be interesting. But at any rate, hope we enjoy the game. Hopefully the Eagles come away with a victory. Go to 3-1 at the bye. Like I said, 2-2 isn't the worst thing in the world either. So we'll see. We'll just see how they do it, and how things wind up for them tomorrow in Tampa. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for watching. What do you always got to do? You got to leave those likes. You got to hit the subscribe button. Make sure to do so because I am trying to get to 2K subs by the end of the year, December 31st, as we come back from the dark here, December 31st, 2024. I'd love to have 2K subs on this channel, and you can make it happen by keep hitting that sub button and also hit the bell icon so you're notified to all future content from yours truly. All right, everyone, let's go Birds tomorrow in Tampa, and I'll be back at some point with some post-game talk, and then we go into the bye week in week 5. All right, everyone, take care.